Okay, we have a lot to get into. So, first and foremost, hi. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you've never been here before. Today we are going to be talking about one of the craziest movies I've ever seen, just in general, in life, The Substance. So this just came out a couple weeks ago, and I finally went to go see it, and let me just say I did not regret it. I'm kind of picky when it comes to what movies I see in the theaters, considering I'm gonna be spending my own money and spending a lot of my time in not my house, and that's a very big decision for me. So I really have to be careful with what movies I want to go see actually in the theaters. And this was one that I wanted to see for a long time because I've just heard so much about it, so much hype about it. But the main thing that got me most interested to go and see this actually in the theaters is the fact that it's a body horror movie. So if you don't know the premise for this movie, a fading celebrity decides to use a black market drug, a cell replicating substance that temporarily creates a younger, better version of herself. So this movie is starring Demi Moore, and let me just say, I have not seen a movie with her in it as like the main character for like such a long time, I feel like, but oh my gosh, she was so good in this. Let me just say, there will be no spoilers in the first part of this review. I'll have spoilers at the end of it if you want to skip that, jump to that. I'll have a time card for that as well. But in terms for no spoilers, I first really enjoyed the acting of this. Demi Moore and Margot Qualley, Dennis Quaid, amazing, spectacular acting. I love Dennis Quaid. I mean, The Parent Trap, hello. We can't forget him in that movie. A couple things about this movie. Let's just start off with things that I liked. Okay, so the acting, something that I really enjoyed, A+ acting. I really like the stylization of this movie. It kind of leaned more into making it look pretty than like super realistic. I'm like, who is designing their house like this? Who's designing a studio like this? Because like I said, it's about like a fading kind of celebrity. She's kind of getting pushed out of her job, which this too, okay, I'm talking about things I like right now. We'll get into that later. But the stylization of this, beautiful. Color scheme, amazing. I loved it. The director, she knows what she's doing. That's another thing. I like that this was directed by a woman. All right, let's just get that out there. This movie has a lot to say about aging and being a woman, but it's not specifically like only women can relate to this movie. It's just about aging and how the media, well, I mean, men can relate to this movie in a lot of different ways, but there are also kind of very specific key elements of it that more women would relate to than men would. Because a lot of it, like I said, it's kind of centered around Demi Moore's character and how she's kind of getting pushed out of her job. She's like a TV aerobics kind of entertainment star, kind of like think 80s exercise videos. Like that's what her job is. And she just turned 50. The movie starts off on her 50th birthday. That's kind of where it snowballs from there, is like her kind of being deemed as like too old for the industry at this point. And they kind of want to fire her and get her out of there. And she's kind of grappling with that. So it deals a lot with like how media and Hollywood and how the public views women once they've reached past a certain age, right? Past their prime, you know, what exactly that means. So that's kind of the part where I'm like, that's a little more specific to women, but aging is a problem for anybody. And this movie deals a lot with like body dysmorphia. So trigger warning for that. But that is something that like everybody could relate to. Doesn't matter who you are. This movie had a lot to say, which is another thing that I liked about it. And I've been seeing a lot of reviews kind of saying like this is like the fucked up version of what Barbie, the Barbie movie was, which I have to agree, because if you didn't see my review for Barbie, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. If anything, I think I gave it maybe like 3 stars because I like the colors of it, which is kind of a trend if you notice on my channel if you've been here. If a movie has good color scheming, I will probably give it like a whole star just for that. But what I didn't really like about the Barbie movie is that there was like too much that they wanted to say and they didn't know like where to put it and how to say it. And for this one, for The Substance, they knew what they wanted to say and they did say it. Like there was no unanswered questions about what the director feels about like this topic, how the director feels about aging and being a woman and all that. I was like, no, I understand what she means. No, I get it, you know? And that was something that the Barbie movie could not give me. And also the fact that it was The Substance is a horror movie kind of adds another little sprinkle of relatability because I love horror movies. I'm someone that when I watch a movie, I kind of like having, like I said, all my questions to have answers. And there was kind of a lot of suspicion of like disbelief. Like there's a lot of like, you just kind of have to go along with the ride. You can't really question or linger too much about the logistics of how the substance works. Certain things like that, you can't really question too much about it because it'll take you out of the movie and you want to be locked in for the movie, right? So how the drug worked, it's kind of okay. Like I understand it, but I also didn't really understand it at the same time. I think something that kind of tripped me up is like there's no, I mean, it is a black market drug, but the main character just takes it without questioning. Like I understand she's kind of like at a breaking point and she wants to take it to, you know, like the premise said, create like a younger version of herself. But I'm like, damn, she really had no questions and she just took that drug and you know what I mean? Like she didn't really, I mean, she did second guess it, but I was like, oh my gosh. The fact that people are so comfortable with like sticking needles in themselves, like I will also never understand. That's not really specific to the movie. That's just like me in general. It's very specific to me and my feelings about it. But there's like little things like that. And like I said about the stylization of the movie, it is very visually pleasing to look at, which I do appreciate so much. Set design is amazing. But it's just like, I feel like no one's decorating their TV studio like this. Like, I feel like it doesn't look pretty. I don't know. I've never been in like a movie set, like a filming set for like a TV show, but I'm like, I feel like the parts that aren't filmed on a TV set would not look pretty. You know what I mean? Like, why would they spend their money on that? I don't know. That's just my opinion. But the main thing that I have been constantly thinking about this and I just truly do not understand how this is possible. So Demi Moore's character, like I said, she just turned 50 and she was like a really popular 80s TV dance aerobics instructor, you know, kind of very, very cheesy. And like I said, she was really famous, as the movie suggests, in like the 80s and the 90s. Okay, well now it's not that anymore. Also, time period, I don't know what time period is supposed to be taking place. I'm assuming it's like now, 2024. So I'm just going off of, okay, now it's 2024. And she's still making these videos. And I'm like, who's watching this? You know, they kind of lead you to believe that it's on TV, like it's during the daytime, like a daytime show. And I'm like, who's watching this? Is this still like a popular thing? I don't know. Maybe that's just me being ignorant, but who is watching a dance aerobics video, a dance aerobics television show during the daytime? Not only just in general, but they fire her so that they can replace her with someone younger. And they don't change up the format. Like, they change the dancing a little bit when Margot Qualley's character replaces Demi Moore's character. And I'm like, okay, she's still an aerobics kind of cheesy instructor. And I'm like, what time period is this taking place where there's such a high demand for a cheesy TV dance aerobics instructor during daytime television? That's why I'm like, I don't know what time period this is supposed to be taking place in, because I'm like, I feel like nowadays people would not watch that. No offense, but people don't really have cable now. I mean, I do, so I'm kind of just being a clown here. But you know what I mean? It's like, how is there such a big demand? Because from this, Margot Qualley's character becomes super famous. And I'm like, how is a dance aerobics instructor becoming so famous? I don't understand. That is like the biggest problem I have with this movie. They could have had a different job. It could have still have been like a celebrity TV star job. Maybe her being a late night TV show host or whatever, or her just being an actress could have been something like an actress on a Days of Our Lives kind of soap opera thing, because people still watch that. That's a very big thing that's still going on. So I'm like, why couldn't they have something a little more believable? Who is watching these dance videos? Again, could be just me being stupid and dumb. If you watch these videos, like if they still exist on TV, let me know. But the viewers kind of led to believe that like this is supposed to be taking place in present day because there's no other tells of the time period this is, right? There's no one overtly dressed in, 80s clothing or clothing from now, or like, you know what I mean? So it's kind of hard to tell when the time period this is supposed to be taking place in. So aside from that, I gave this movie out of 5 stars, I gave it 4.5 because I do love everything that this movie was saying. I understood it. It wasn't like a movie where I was questioning why the director made certain decisions. There's a lot of focusing on the female body and like nudity. And normally I'm not a big fan of that because a lot of movies, especially for horror, they do that and show like a lot of female nudity and it's like not necessary and doesn't move the plot along. But this time it was like, I got it. Like it was important. We are talking about femininity and being a woman and aging. And there's a lot of time, again, like I said, the whole body dysmorphia thing. There's a lot of both characters, Margot Qualley and Demi Moore, looking at themselves in the mirrors, just butt-ass naked. I didn't feel like it was unnecessary, which is important. There was a lot of times where I was like, hey, I understand what the director's trying to say. Like it didn't leave me leaving like I didn't know what just happened. And I will go a little bit more into this when I go into the spoiler section, where the movie ended up going. Like I said in the beginning of this video, I've heard that this was more of like a body horror, and it definitely is. And body horror is like my favorite subgenre of horror that I've kind of come to realize since, starting my channel. So where this movie went and all the imagery and body horror that we saw, I loved. I loved it, and I love practical effects. They use a lot of practical effects, and that's always the best part of horror movies. I think we can all agree that we don't like it when it's a lot of just CGI for horror movies and animation, right? We want to see the practicality. We want to see the special effects, the makeup, all of that. We don't want to see it faked. So that was another thing that really, really put this movie over the edge for me. This is like the second favorite movie I've seen this whole year, which we'll get into that towards the end of the year when I do my whole ranking. That is it for no spoilers, 4.5. Like I said, everything about like this whole like dancing thing, that is honestly what made me give this not 5 stars, because I couldn't put that out of my brain. Like I know when watching movies, there's a lot of like, you just have to put certain aspects of like normal human real world logic. You have to turn that off in your brain. I couldn't do that with the dancing video thing. I don't know why. It's a me problem for sure, but 4.5 stars is still amazing. So now let's get into the spoilers. You can go ahead and click off if you don't want to see any spoilers for this. I totally understand because I highly encourage everyone to go and see this movie if you can. So, all right, we're gonna get into spoilers right now. So I think that sometimes with movies that have, I guess, like very different tones, it can be really difficult to blend them together, I will say. Okay, so for this movie, it's very serious, very quiet all throughout. There's not a lot of talking. There's not a lot of dialogue, truth be told. I bet the actual dialogue that happens in the movie will fill maybe like a couple of pages, because a lot of it is, like I said, the main actresses like looking at themselves in the mirror and taking the drug and whatever. So there was a part where a part of the whole substance thing is once this like new younger version of yourself is birthed, then you have to stabilize yourself. And in order to do that, you have to get like some sort of liquid, I think it's like spinal fluid or something, out of your main, I think it's called like the matrix or whatever, like your main body. you have to extract that from your main body into your fake body, basically. And so Margot Qualley has to extract it from Demi Moore's spine. Now, it was kind of confusing as to why that stabilizes the copy. I don't understand how that works. And I was talking about this with my husband because I did not go and see this with him. I was just explaining the movie to him because he was also questioning, like, is it still her same consciousness just transferred to the younger version? And he kind of had the theory that like maybe the spinal fluid or the thing that you extract to stabilize his copy is consciousness. Like that is what you transfer into your copy, which makes sense, honestly. And I think that was something that kind of confused a lot of people too, is like, is it still your same consciousness that's extracted to your copy version, your younger, prettier version, whatever the fuck? Is it still the same, your same mindset, or is it like a completely different human, basically? I didn't think that was too confusing. I've always thought, like while I was watching the movie, that it was the same consciousness because all throughout the movie, the people that made the substance keep saying, and they said it like in the promotion video too for the drug, that you and the copy are one. You're the same person. You are one. That wasn't really confusing of like, is it the same consciousness? I'm like, yes, it is, because they said you are one. I think people got a little tripped up about it because to me, this is how I saw it, is a lot of times when, you know, Demi Moore's in the Margot Qualley body and she's all like beautiful and she's like, oh my gosh, like she did this, she did that, talking about Demi Moore. She is talking about herself in the third person. So people are like, wait a second, is that a different, are they different people? Do they not have the same brain? And I think that's really like, which I also saw other people describe this. One, it's kind of like when she's in the younger version of herself or whatever, the copy version, she's kind of like on a high and not really acting the way that she would normally act if she was in her normal body. So that's kind of why she disconnects herself. And even though she is like the same person, someone described it as like someone who is addicted to drugs, that they get like a high when they're on drugs and they maybe will act in ways that they normally wouldn't act, and then once they come down from the high, they're kind of shocked and they aren't aware of the decisions that they made when they were, you know, on that high when they were taking the drug. So I think that is kind of the vibe I was getting, is she kept talking about herself in third person. I was like, she's mentally unwell. And she's not making the connection that it's her doing these things to herself. It's self-harm. Like she's doing this stuff to herself and she's not aware because she kind of got this like weird confidence boost because she took this drug, and you know what I mean? So it's like there's a disconnect there because the character is mentally unwell, and you see that moving forward, even though this drug is supposed to like, you know, give you a better version of yourself or whatever. It's all obviously not a good thing because it only makes Demi Moore, you know, when she, because you have to go back into your OG body, right? So Demi Moore is her 50-year-old body. She has to go back into that. So they're kind of switching consciousness every 7 days. So every time she goes back into her 50-year-old body, she is getting like more and more insecure about herself. And it's aging her as well. So it's not without faults. That's kind of what I got from it, is like she is just getting more and more insecure, except it's like heightened 10 times more because she knows what she could look like when she gets transferred to the Margot Qualley younger 20-year-old version of herself. So there's a lot, and this movie is quite long. All right, this is about 2.5 hours long. Not the biggest fan of longer movies. If you're new here, I don't like watching movies that are more than like 90 minutes. That's a me problem. I'm working on it. I really am. But yeah, this movie is a little bit longer, and honestly, I did feel it because there's a lot of scenes of the main actresses just like staring at their bodies. And I understand it. I understand why we were lingering on those scenes. But at the same time, I was like, okay, we're taking a while here. You know what I mean? We can speed it up a bit. I get the point. But with that being said, I didn't feel like there were any unnecessary scenes. Like I understood why we were lingering there. I guess it's just, again, a me problem because I really had to pee when I didn't want to leave. So I really had to pee and I was just like holding it for the last, I don't even know, like half hour. And especially when it comes to the last half hour of the movie, you really don't want to get up and leave because that's pretty much when everything goes down. I mean, there's small, yes, gross like body horror imagery kind of sprinkled throughout the movie, but it really gets amped up at the very end of the movie, which honestly, I was like kind of sick watching it. Like it made me a little sick to my stomach, which is ironic because it was also my favorite part of the movie. The movie had so much to say. And this is what I was talking about earlier with like, oh, it might be kind of hard to blend two different tones in a movie together because the whole movie is serious. It's very serious. There's very little jokes in there. Like, I'm not even kidding, there's maybe like 2 or 3 jokes in there. There's like a goofy neighbor. That's it. All the characters in this movie, aside from Margot Qualley and Demi Moore, are very extra. They're a little more animated than like a normal person would be, how a normal person would act. And that's also for a reason. I think that's also to kind of add to the allure that Demi Moore is kind of unwell. You know, like her mental state isn't well. She's kind of seeing these people around her, how they treat her. She may be seeing it like heightened 10 times more because she is mentally unwell. But anyways, so once you get towards the end where a bunch of shit just goes down, Margot Qualley starts to disobey like the directions for the substance, and that causes her body start to like fall apart. It's like her teeth, her fingernails, her ears, all this stuff starts falling apart. So she goes back home and she thinks that if the copy, you know, Margot Qualley is the copy, if she takes the substance, then it will create a better version of herself. But she's a copy, so she's essentially making a duplicate of a duplicate, and it just creates like this terrifying, horrific monster thing. They call it Monstro Elizabeth Sue or whatever. Those are the 2 characters' names combined. So that is pretty much where like the main heightened scenes of body horror that people are talking about, like that's where it is. It's when this monster gets created. And I think this is where maybe the tone shift might get people like, I don't like how it shifted there. And I get what they're saying. I do get it. However, I just loved it because the movie was so serious the whole time, and it was kind of just like really sad and depressing, especially if you're a girl just watching it. And it was just kind of a lot, honestly. And then the ending was kind of like, aw. I don't know, it was kind of like a breath of fresh air. Maybe that's just me being weird. I don't know. I kind of liked it because I was like, okay, finally, we have something funny, something kind of which if you've seen the movie, you're like, what is wrong with you? I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. But anyways, it's so funny because when all of this was going down, I saw it with my friend and we were talking about all of this. We were talking about the ending and she was like, all I kept thinking at the end of the movie was, wow, to be a woman is to perform. And that is literally what the ending can be summarized to, because Margot Qualley, this copy or whatever, she, in her height of fame, being a dance aerobic instructor or whatever the fuck, in her height of her fame, has to host like a New Year's Eve show. And so once she becomes like this monster copy of a copy, disgusting creature thing, she's like, well, I still have to go perform. I still have my responsibilities. And that is what it's like to be a woman, if you're ever curious. I get that it was a completely different tone than the whole beginning of the movie. I thought it was so fucking funny that I honestly didn't care that it didn't match the beginning tone, but it also could, that's just me thinking that it was funny. You know, it was so gross and made me uncomfortable to the point where I just had to laugh. And if you wanted to, you could still think of it as that being like a serious tone, because all of that, like her turning into a monster or whatever, was it basically being visualized like what vanity and your insecurity, what your mental health, all of that can be manifested into. It can turn you into a monster, and they just like actually showed it visually. They brought it out for everyone to see. So my favorite part though at the very end was literally the very, very end, when there's still like Demi Moore's face that's on this like weird monster body. It's like her normal face, and she kind of disintegrates and it goes onto her Hollywood star on the Walk of Fame. And I just thought it was so goofy and funny and weird in the best way possible, which is funny because I feel like that is like the main thing why people wouldn't give it a 5 stars. But my reason for not giving it 5 stars is the dancing. So stupid. I know, it's very stupid. But I've been watching a bunch of videos about the ending of this movie, about the meaning, the context, like about everything, Easter eggs, all that type of stuff. I've been watching so many videos about it, and one of them said that in that final scene where she's kind of just like a mush pile and she's on her star, her Hollywood star on the Walk of Fame, that's when she's the happiest that she's been throughout the whole movie. And it's because she just straight up doesn't have a body. Like she's just a blob. She's literally just a blob on the sidewalk. And that's when she's happy, is when she doesn't have a body. And I heard that and I was like, that is crazy. That's crazy. Like that made me love the movie 10 times more, because all of this is her being insecure about her body. And when she finally doesn't have a body anymore, she's happy. She's finally content. Unfortunately, she disintegrates, but you know, at least she died happy. We have to be happy for her. However that happened, I'm happy for my girlie. But with that said and done, I want to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons, and especially Mark Sylvester, James Cox, and E. Thank you so much, and make sure to go ahead and check out my Patreon if you haven't already. Okay, what did you guys think about The Substance? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was just all right? Let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious to see what you guys thought about this movie. I don't know if it's a movie I would see again. Definitely not in theaters again. All right, I'm not spending, you know, 30 bucks on this movie and about 5 hours of my life in the movie theater. Like, I'm just not doing that. But if it came to streaming, I would probably rewatch it with someone who's never seen it before, because I want to just see what they think about it. So this is definitely a movie I definitely want to discuss and talk more about with you guys. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you so much for coming along with me on this journey. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all of that jazz. And as always, thanks for watching.